Okay. Then let's start. So let's see if we can move this. Oops. Yeah. And move this here around on this screen. Yeah, I think that's fine. Oh, I didn't want to do this. Okay, it seems that I can't see the chat at the same time, but that's okay. Good. Get it in action. Make your life easier. Let's start. Before we start, I was asked about state management. Actually, I don't, and state management and Get It has a lot of things in common, or is connected. The thing is, and actually before I came to Flutter, I didn't know the term state management, honestly. And I have never met another community who talks so much about state management. Because for me, state management is the thing that, or is what makes it possible that our UI and our data stays in sync. Which means if the data change, our UI has to update, and if I if I do an action on the screen, my data will update. Yeah. So I use in my in my apps, I use an architecture that I call RVMS, which has 3 layers, which has the views, which are just widgets, the UI that we have on top. We have services on the bottom, and services are the connector to the outside of the world. So it connects to sensors, to REST APIs, to databases. This is placed here, and in the middle we have managers, and managers are the thing that allow us to manipulate, to change the data. I won't go into too much detail into this. This would be in a completely other talk, but just to give you an idea what are the different parts we are talking about. Here's another view on it that shows it a little bit with some examples. And the thing is, if we have this this objects here. So, for example, the views have to access the managers. Managers have to access databases or the services, and managers might also access each other. So the question is, how do they access each other? Yeah, here's a very concrete example of my current app, which is a mobile client for a drone detection system. Yeah, so you see we have a lot of different objects that interact with each other. Yeah, so and all of them have to access and to find each other. So how do we do this? Traditionally, in the beginning, when I started with Flutter, there was only inherited widget. If you wanted to pass any data to your UI, you had to use an inherited widgets. Then we had actually, yeah, provider came later actually. When the thing was, I never got inherited widgets work the way that it should do. I don't know if I was too stupid or what was the problem, but at already at this point, I thought we need some other way to do this. Remy wrote provider sometimes ago, which solves the problem and is based on inherited widgets. And a little bit of problem is that they are both parts of the widget tree, which means they require a build context, and also they clutter the widget tree with meta widgets that are not real UI elements. And I decided pretty early that I want to have something else, and so I wrote the service locator getIt. getIt is actually, I ported more or less a service locator that I knew from Xamarin, which is called Splat. And the nice thing about it is it's extremely fast. Yeah, and you need no context. And how to use it, we see in a very basic example. If we look at this this example here, and we, for example, we have a class app model that is where our app data is, our business logic is in. And I want to use it later on, I can register it as singleton. And when registering it, I pass in a concrete implementation of this type. So we will see what's the benefit of this a little bit later. And when I have done this here, actually I just assigned the getIt instance to a global variable. getIt itself is a singleton, so you can always access it over the instance parameter. And I assigned it to a global variable, which is in most cases the easiest way to handle it. Yeah, and now in the UI, instead of the typical view model of context dot, we can now do this here. This means I can do as a get, I pass the type that I have registered, and it will get it returned, and I can directly pass use the member of it, the update function, for example, here. And as getIt itself is a callable class, I can write it even shorter directly like this here to access my objects. And this works anywhere in your code, not only in the UI, also in any other object that has access to the getIt instance. Actually, if you have any any questions that directly pop up, and I can't see the chat while I have screen sharing on, don't know why. Maybe Maliha, can you, if you see some question that shows that it's something I did not explain enough or so, just give me, just interrupt me, okay? That's perfectly fine.
Sure.
Okay. So that's the basic. Now we have different possibilities what we can register. We just saw the register singleton, and a singleton, if just for people who are not familiar with the expression, it's a design pattern which describes a behavior. A singleton is an object that makes sure that only exactly one instance of this object exists in the app. Yeah. Compared to this, you can also register a type as a factory. In this case, you have to provide a factory method. And now every time you access app model over getIt, it will create a new object of this type by calling this factory method, yeah? Which can be handy in some situations. And then you also have the possibility, for example, if the constructor of your object would take a lot of time, yeah. So you don't want to have it created immediately at startup when you register your objects, you can use a lazy singleton. And lazy singletons have the behave in a way that they are not created until the first time you access them. So after that, you will always get the same instance back, but the first time you access it, this factory function will get called. Yeah. So these are the three different kinds that we support with factory, singleton, and lazy singleton. Now, I told you that that you have that we have the possibility to have to pass a class here and then a different implementation here. So the reason for this is now we can easily switch out in implementation when registering. Inside the app, we will always access over the app model type, yeah? But depending on how you register it, we will get back different types of objects. So this allows a lot of flexibility. You not only could you, here in this case, we have testing, but you could, for example, also switch out database interfaces. If I have one abstract database type here, and I have different database implementations depending what type of backend you are connecting to, yeah? Some people, yeah, some people don't like the idea that they that you have to use your that you have to set up the get it when you do unit testing, and for this this pattern here is quite useful. The idea is that you give your objects an optional parameters. In this case, for example, the app model and the database service. And then we check at the beginning if an object was passed, we use this, and if not, we access the one that is registered and get it. So in your unit tests, you can directly pass in your mock objects here, and in the normal app, when it's working, it will take the one that is registered inside get it. Now,
Thomas, sorry to interrupt you. I have just a question.
Yeah, sure.
In the previous slide, you are checking the null. So instead of that, you can take it as a default argument as well. So like you can assign it as a default one. If nothing is passed, then assign it to that.
What do you mean?
In the constructor,
Yeah.
uh, instead of like we can also call it like optional parameter with a default value. So default value could be the getted instance.
Are you sure? Because it's I thought it's only.
I'm not sure. I'm asking you this thing.
Okay.
Can we do this?
I think it's not possible because you only can pass constants as default parameters, and as this is calling a function, I think it don't work.
Yeah, we can only like call constant. Yeah, get it.
Okay. So we have actually, besides the besides the registration functions that I showed you so far, we have some more possibilities. We can also register async objects. What does this mean? Async objects are objects that need an asynchronous factory function. For example, if to create this object, a REST call is needed, yeah? And so logically for this, we have for factory singleton and factory async and singleton and, oh, I have twice the registers factory async. What's this? Oh, normally it should be lazy singleton async. Sorry, there's a bug in the slide. And to use this, you use it exactly the same as the register function before, but you pass an async function as factory function. And now we have a little bit of problem because as this async function is, as this factory function is async, we don't know if the object is already created when we access it. And that's the reason why we have to use the getAsync function in this case and not just get and await this one. Actually, it's not completely true. This is true for if you use factories, you have always to use this. But in case you know it's already created, you can also directly access with get to the object. Yeah, but if you are not sure, you have to use the getAsync in this case. We will have some nice helpers to make this more comfortable. Because when we are talking about this registration, this is typically done when I start up an app. And now we can have the situation that we have several services and they may have dependencies on each other. For example, like here, we have an app model as our app manager, as our central business object. And this depends on a database service, config service, and REST API service. And the database service also depends on config service. For example, the config service could read the from the what's it called? Now I have a blackout. From the Android settings that you can store in your for your
preferences.
Pardon?
Shared preferences.
Yeah, thank you. Shared preference. Perfect. Yeah, for example, shared preferences. Now, shared preferences is an async. You need an async call to access this. Our database probably also. The REST API service, we don't know at the moment. How would you do this normally? This is, if you try to do this manually, your startup code looks pretty fast, quite messy. And as this is so common and so close connected with objects that I want to use in my app, I added an functionality for this inside getIt. Let's have an example here. We register an async singleton, and I have different ways how this could look like here. This is the case that we use an async lambda that creates our config service. It calls the init function on the config service, awaits it, and returns the config service. Okay. This will, this function will directly start this this factory function, but it's an async function, so it will just fire it and let it run. Then we could also have, if we structure our objects a little bit more elegantly, we could give REST service an init function, a static init function that a function that returns directly itself, so, as a future. So we can pass it in this way. Another singleton, the REST service. Then maybe we have some async function that will give us back the database service. So I can directly pass this database service in here. And now it gets interesting. We can use the depends on parameter and pass in other registered objects that has to be completely initialized before this one gets initialized. And we do this with the depends on, and app model is not an async object, but it needs the other objects. So we register it with register singleton with dependencies and pass in all the objects that have to be ready. And now to be safe in our app, we can use on our startup page, we can use getIt the already function. Already returns you a future that will complete when all registered async objects are initialized. Yeah. So I can, I can show a progress indicator as long as the initialization is running. And the moment it's ready, we can switch to the we can switch to our real app. Or, for example, I can also, I don't need to use a future builder. I could also use this inside an init state of a stateful widget, and then wait for already and push a new page at the moment that this is finished. Yeah. If you are if this automatic mechanism does not fit you completely, you can also do it manually. So you can use the signal ready function to signal from one of your objects that this instance is ready, and you can check with is ready if the object is accessible at this moment. And you can also wait for single objects that they are ready. And additionally, you have the possibility to have named instances. This is if you really need more than one instance of the same type, you can register them with different names. But normally I advise against it because it makes things more confusing. What's also it's new. I don't have this at the moment. Actually, I forgot it. I'm sorry. We now also support scoping. That means you can register the same type several types by creating a new scope, and scopes get layered on each other like in a stack. And the moment you pop one of these scopes, objects registered inside this scope will be disposed, and the registrations from the scope below get active again. This is can be pretty handy. Now, so far we have we just saw how to access objects, and this was for a long time. I was pretty happy with this, because typically I use inside my objects streams or value notifiers. So I use them to react on data changes. Now, users of Gedit asked me if I could support real state management. I said before that it's not really that I don't like the type, this term state management. But if I could support the what I would say, rebuilding of the UI if data changes. And for this, I took a little bit of inspiration from how Remy has implemented parts of this in Remy Roussillon in Flutter hooks, and created a mix-in for Gedit. And to understand how we can use it, let's imagine we have a model class here, and this model class will be registered inside Gedit. Also, we have just for an example a simple value notifier. Also, this value notifier will be registered inside Gedit directly with the type value notifier string. And just if we have a look here, we have a simple string. We have a property which will call the notify listeners as soon as you change the value of country. So as a model extends change notifier that you can signal that a change has happened. And then we have we have a field of value notifier as field, and even we have a nested we are a nesting model. So we can have inside another model. We have a stream, and we have a future. Yeah, so typical just all options that you could have in your model class that you want to access in your UI. Now, if you see here, we have the we create a stateless widget and we extend it with our mixin. And with this, we suddenly get a lot of nice functions inside our widget. Let's start with the really easy ones. Get is actually exact the same as if you would do getIt model constant value. It's just a shortcut. So it allows you directly the access to the getIt objects. The same, then we have watch. And watch is interesting. Watch will access the object that you passes in, the object of type that you passes in here, and return. And you have to also to pass the to return the to pass in the type that it that the value that value that of the value of the value notifier that it returns. So what does watch? Watch will get this object. We have registered this variable here in getIt, and pass back the current value of this object. Now, the nice thing is, compared to get, the moment the value of this value notifier that is registered changes, it will trigger an update, a rebuild of this stateless widget. So it will trigger an update and it will automatically assign the latest value to this variable here, notifiable. So that's the and we can go. This is if you have a simple value notifier. Now, what's more common is things like this, that I have a model class, which is a change notifier, and I have some normal fields like country that I want to be watch and want to update if it changes. And for this, I can use watch only. And watch only gets passed in an accessor function where you tell it which is the field inside your model class that you want to watch. And it will trigger an update and rebuild of this function each time this field changes. Yeah. And also you get the latest value. When you call this, you get the latest value passed inside country. So every time this this changes, it will trigger a rebuild. It calls watch only again and gets you the latest value. So in your build function, in your actually widgets, you can directly use the variables that you design up there, and you will be sure you will always have the latest values. Then we have the have watch X, which is actually the case, which is also will be perhaps even more common than watch only, if the field itself of your model object is a value notifier. So in this, then you can use watch X. So for example, if you have a model class that doesn't extend change notifier, but is a value notifier, you can just use watch X, which is for me what I am doing the most typical way I use it. And or for example, yeah. And what's interesting is that watch only, I forgot this, watch only will only update if the value has changed, really. So if any other value in the model changes, it won't update the UI, but only if the country has changed. And then I can even go a step further. If I want to observe a nested object that is that implements change notifier, then I can pass two. I can use watch X only that gets two accessor functions. One to access the the object that implements the change notifier, and one that shows me inside this object which field I want to use. So, but typically you will only use, probably you will most of the time use watch X or watch only. Yeah. And they always will give you directly the objects of this of the type that you use here that is registered inside getIt. Any questions so far?
Thomas, I have one question, two questions, but like they are related to getIt. Mm, First is like I have used getIt for registering block and the API clients, right? So whenever I register it and I created the instance in the init method, sorry, void main of the main function.
Yes,
So
exactly.
it takes a lot of load over there. So is there any solution for that? Like if we have a lot of classes in the our getIt file, then it would like take a lot of time.
Did you register them as singletons or lazy singletons?
If we register them as singleton,
Oh, sorry again?
if we register them as singleton.
Yeah, in this case, I recommend use lazy singletons because they will create the block objects only when they are used the first time.
Okay.
This, if you use a lot of them, then it's definitely the best approach to use this.
Okay. And like second question is like let's just take a scenario where I have a class where three I have like three parameters that need to pass in the constructor,
Yes.
where two of them are object of another class and one is just an integer variable, like let's say just a counter variable.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to pass that counter variable from the calling, like whenever we call the method, call the class, I want to pass from there. But in getIt we have to register all the parameters in our injection container file, right? So is it possible that we register two of the parameters and one we can pass?
In this case, use a factory. Register it as a factory because you can pass two parameters to a factory when at the moment when you call it, when you need it.
Okay, so we can pass it.
Yeah, but
Okay,
only
great.
for factories.
Yeah.
Because, because the others are always the idea for singletons and lazy singletons is that you define them at the startup completely.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So so here we have seen how can we, with the getIt mixin, how can we access values and automatically update our widget. Yeah, which means normally, if I would have here an if I wanted to watch or to update my screen depending on such a change, I would need to use a value listenable builder inside here in the build function. Yeah, which makes the code a lot more cluttered because builders are always makes UI code in my opinion more difficult to read. So the same thing is if you have a stream or a future, you need a stream builder or a future builder. With the getIt mixin, we can now use the watch stream method, which will get the latest value of the stream and trigger a rebuild of your widget the moment a new value is emitted by the stream. And you don't need an you can all this do in a stateless widget. The same with watch future. You can you can observe the state of a future in your model, and it will automatically trigger the rebuild of this widget the moment the future changes and you get the latest value in this case of the future in the ready variable. So you can do something like this here. instead of having a future builder somewhere, you can directly use the function if ready and current user has data, show it a progress indicator, which is, in my opinion, easier to read and more concise than if I would have to use here. Actually, I would have to need to nest two builders here. I would have to nest on. I would have to nest a stream builder, a future builder, and inside a stream builder to achieve the same. And with this, I can directly assign them to the variables, and it will automatically work without any headache. But we can even go a step further. We can register handlers, and this is normally, for example, if I want to show a dialog, yeah, the moment name changes, for example, here in my model class, I would normally have to use a stateful widget and register and start register a handler for the name value notifier inside init state, and I would have to take care to update it on did update widget, and I had to dispose it at the end. So with the get it mixin, you can do the same in a stateless widget, and it will take care of all of this stuff. So in your build function, you only have to call register handler, pass in which value listenable it should observe, and give it a handler function that should be called if if the data changes. The same for streams and for futures. So it's very easy. For example, if you have a stream that will return you errors, you can just use register stream handler, and then show a dialog that shows the that shows the error. Yeah, actually, that's what you can do with the get it mixin. Questions? Oh, wait, one quick thing. This here, the watch stream. If you are using a block, you can use the watch stream to observe your blocks. Just as a comment. Yeah, questions?
So this register handlers, like the handlers, if it is already registered once, will it re-register every time?
No. That's the nice thing. Actually this is with all it will automatically see this is already registered, and it won't do it again. Same with here. It won't register more listeners. It always does it once.
Okay.
Any other questions? Should we have a look at some real application, how this looks like?
Thomas, there's a question in chat. With provider, it's possible to create a view model for a screen and use it inside all widgets, and then dispose the view model when the screen is disposed. Can you do something similar with get it?
Not directly this way. What you can do is you can use a scope in get it, meaning when you push a new widget, you can actually use that. Actually, the get it mixin has a function for this push scope, that will that you have to call at the beginning of the build function. Then it will push a new scope at the moment this widget is created, and you can pass a new register function there for objects that should be registered in this scope. And the moment the widget gets closed, gets disposed, all objects in the scope will get disposed. It's not directly connected inside the widget tree like provider. But it's intentionally that it is a separate structure. But you can control from your widget tree. You can say, okay, push something, pop something, and deal with this.
I also had this question, right? To when we should unregister or get it instances.
Just again.
When should we unregister the instances of our get it when we register them? We also need to unregister them, or we can like just keep it like the application. Like it.
Okay. Actually, this is the. It depends a little bit how much resources your objects have. Yeah. In the way I structure my apps, typically my objects are long-lived. Yeah. But so I don't typically unregister them. But in other cases, again, I would always use a scope. That's you can what I didn't show you, when you register an object, you can directly pass a dispose function that will be will then be called if the object is unregistered. And if you use the scope, you can with one call unregister everything that is registered after you push a new scope. So if you have an object that have to free any resources, that's the easiest way to handle this.
Yeah, get it. Thanks.
I hope I will be able to create some in the near future some videos that will explain all the different aspects with more detail. And if you have any questions, just ping me on Twitter. I'm way too much on Twitter, honestly, but it's easy to reach out to me. And I'm happy to explain things. And just as a recommendation, if you want to be, what I showed you here with the get it mixin, it's an elementary basic way for state management. If you want to get a little bit more fancy, check out my Flutter command package, which is actually I think a more powerful alternative to block. And Flutter commands are all themselves value notifier. So combining Flutter commands with the get it mixin is an extremely powerful combination. I highly recommend reading the README of Flutter command. I think it's quite easy to understand. Okay, I think. What are you thinking, Maliha?
Yeah, it was a great session. I don't think we have any more questions. I'll just send a link to the feedback form that we have prepared for people to give us feedback on this session.
Mm-hmm. Great.
And I'd like to ask you one question, is that what one advice would you give to people who are just starting with Flutter and want to go deeper in it? As an experience, as you have much experience in Flutter, what advice would you give?
That's a difficult question. I would recommend really start early to structure your app in a way that you separate your UI from your data. And so by using either Gedit or Provider or any other of the packages that are now available, you can, I think you're just, in the long run, you will be definitely more happy with your project. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So I guess that is it.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Was fun.
It was
Thank you so much
a
so much.
pleasure having you.
Okay. See you. Bye-bye.